What's going on, guys? Matt at Middleton Motorsports here. Another GT500 up on the dyno for another Behind the Tune episode here. So let's walk up here and take a look at what we got on this one. So this is I believe this is 2020. So this video, I kind of wanted to, let me adjust this microphone here. I kind of want to talk about how simple it is to make power with these cars. I know you've seen, we've seen these on our channel before, and obviously you can make big power with these cars. But this car, I kind of wanted to I'll preface this with, we didn't do the work on this car. This gentleman brought this car to us as is, and he bought this car as is. He just purchased it, and he was having some trouble with some drivability, and there was a check engine light on. So he needed us to go through it and retune it, and we did a couple other things to it here in the shop, some fluid changes and a couple cosmetic things. But as far as the dyno goes, it was tuned by another well-known shop for GT500s, and for whatever reason they didn't do some stuff correctly in the tune, and he had some check engine lights and some codes for O2 sensors and whatnot. So I got all that straightened out. We had to go back to a factory tune because it was a PCM Tech deal, and PCM Tech has more coverage than some stuff with HP tuners and less coverage than HP tuners on other stuff. So this car I'm doing HP tuners with because of the simplicity of the setup, and I don't need to get into the custom fuel system and all that stuff like we've done on some of the other cars. But yeah, I wanted to talk about where we're at with this car and kind of how simple it is to make, close to 900 at the tires with one of these deals. So JLT intake, stock throttle body, stock blower, stock lid, all that stock. It's got I believe a 2.8 SPE pulley on it, and long tube headers. Fueling, it does have Fore Rails, Fore Innovations Rails, ID 1050s, and it's on E85. So some fuel system mods, cold air intake, a pulley, and headers. And these things are 670-ish to the tire on average, and this is where we're at so far, 889, 710 torque. So the 878 pull was before I did any tuning. That was with the other shop's tune in it. Obviously you can see I'm right there along with that, other than just this little bit of cleanup up top. I ended up pulling quite a bit of timing out of this thing. They had 27 degrees of timing in it, which these things don't really make power after 24, 25 maybe with a pulley on it like this. And you can see up here, my tune is the blue line. And I know for a fact up here that the previous tune, the red line, was 27 degrees, and I'm at 23. So you can see it's, not making any power in this area. This little bump is from some cam timing trickery that I've learned over the course of tuning a bunch of these things. When you do headers on them, there's a little bit of gain with some extra cam timing advance on the exhaust and some retard on the intake cams. Usually you can get this little bit of bump up top, up over 7,500. That's something I learned a while back doing my car, actually, my car and Chuck's car. We first did headers. So you can see here the previous tune maybe had a little bit more in this mid-range, but I am very conservative on the timing on these. Again, I like tuning a little more conservative. If you're going to make another 8 or 10 horsepower throughout the mid-range here, but you're leaning on the timing super hard, the difference here being, and I've talked about this before, 23 degrees of timing versus 27 degrees of timing. So we're going 4 degrees of timing to pick up 10 horsepower. That to me is pushing on the engine as hard as you can possibly push on it for that specific area of RPM and the specific manifold pressure that we're running on this thing. I am going to do one more pull. Obviously we'll film the last pull here. The red run was just kind of a one and done deal, just to see what was making and for me to data log to see where it was at. So everything was a little bit cooler. Versus the blue run that I just did prior to picking up the camera here. So So we'll see. I'm letting it cool off for 10-15 minutes to kind of try to simulate that red pull that I did on the previous tune. Again, I'm not going to get all crazy and try to, you know, match these little areas. You can see, you know, like the blue, it's a little higher here on my pull. The blue, it's a little higher here on the previous tune, the red, and then I'm a little higher up here. Obviously up here you can see it's a pretty significant amount. Again, that's the cam timing change I make to the top. I'm not going to get too excited about little bits here and there. You try to overlay two dyno graphs, and again, this is 2 different days. Today's Monday. I did this Friday night last week, so I think we're pretty much the same. And again, I'm a little more conservative on my timing number, several degrees less, to be exact. So I'm going to set the camera down. We'll do one more rip on this thing, and then we'll take a look at the data log. We'll take a look at the final graph, and we'll see where we end up. So let's take a look at some final numbers here. 890, 707 torque. Car didn't cool down as much as I wanted it to try to match that first pull I did last week with the other tune in it, but it is what it is. It's getting late here and I can't do any more pulls just because of the sound. This thing is loud and we got a neighborhood kind of behind us, so we got a limit on how late I can dyno. So I got to call that a day on this car. But we still picked up a little bit at the very top, and again, I'm way lower on the timing than the other tune had. So I'm really happy with this. It's making good power for what it is. Curve's nice and flat. So I'm gonna peel off those, and we'll just look at that final. Nice curve as we normally see out of E85 and a pulley on one of these GT500 spreader engines. So we can go in and take a look at the data log. We are definitely, let me grab the laptop here, definitely on the limit of the fuel system. Obviously this has rails and injectors, but still stock pumps. So it's kind of a jagged, kind of a jumbled mess right here, but you can kind of see this orange line. You can see that's fuel pressure, and you can see, so mid pull here, we're up where we're supposed to be, up above that 100 mark, and you can see as the pull progresses, it just slowly drops, and we're ended up down, you know, about 90 PSI, 89 there at the very top, 92, 91. So it's definitely dropping. The commanded pressure up there is about 100 PSI. That's what the ECU wants to see. So, and it's a little chillier, but yeah, it's out of fuel as we typically see once we approach the 900. Some cars will go over 900, like the real low mileage ones with nice fresh fuel pumps in them. They'll go over 900 wheel on the stock pump setup. So, but we'll go back to the timing I was talking about before. So you can see my timing curve here. I'm usually pretty conservative with timing on stuff like this. And you can see here I'm touching like 25 and a half. The other tune was 27 from probably here all the way. It was just 27 all the way across. And that's just, it's really leaning on the bottom end pretty hard. What ends up happening is E85 doesn't detonate or knock per se. It won't really knock at power levels like this. What'll happen is you ignite the mixture early enough, it doesn't detonate, but you're still getting peak cylinder pressure before the piston reaches top dead center. So what happens then is you're just pounding on the rod bearing and the bottom end of the engine, because the crank is still mechanically trying to move the piston up against the peak cylinder pressure. So you really want the peak cylinder pressure to happen after top dead center, just a smidge past. So the mechanical leverage of the rod and the piston pushing down against the rod and then subsequently pushing the crank down, you want that to happen, that peak pressure to happen after the piston has a chance to start coming over the top and coming back down, and the crank arm has a chance to get past, and where the rod can actually push the crank pin down instead of the crank pin coming up or at the very top You don't want the peak cylinder pressure vary at the top dead center because, again, at the very peak, the crank is, you know, in line with the rod, which is in line with the piston. You're just pushing against the oil film on the bearings, and you end up just over time it just hammers the bottom end, and you end up with a prematurely worn out engine. So, and again, that's the type of stuff that doesn't just show up instantly. You won't just shred a motor instantly from doing stuff like that, from hammering a motor with too much timing on E85. It over time it'll just prematurely wear the engine out. You just wear out rings, bearings. I've seen main bearings wear out from guys having too much timing in them, where it just pounds the crank so hard it beats the bottom of the bottom. It'll beat the top rod bearing out, the rod bearing that's in the actual rod itself, not the rod cap, and it'll beat the bottom main bearings out that are in the main caps. You take these engines apart, and any engines, you go LS, Hemi, whatever, these modern engines where you're pushing stuff like this, and you take them apart after somebody's been through it like that, and it looks like somebody's taken a little ball peen hammer, and it just beats them. And then sometimes you even see copper where it just beats them up. It just beats the bottoms out. So I don't like running them that way. If we're down a little bit of torque in the mid-range, you know, I like keeping the torque low in kind of this mid-range with this type of boost and torque. It's not going to make or break any sort of, you know, if you're after some record at the drag strip, you're after a quarter-mile record, fine, you know, hammer away. But for a daily, this guy's wanted to just have something he could fun daily drive for the summer with this car, you're not going to miss an extra 5 or 10 horsepower because you're extracting that last, you know, 10 horsepower out of 2-3 more degrees of timing, but you're hammering the bottom end. So I don't know. I just think longevity with their stuff, when I'm tuning stuff like this, I want to see it last, you know, last and last and last. Obviously there's limits to everything, but why let it, you know, why have something that's going to live maybe a summer versus you can make it live multiple summers or 5 summers, or, you know, depending on how it's driven. So that's just my kind of take on this stuff. And obviously, you know, we looked at the graph. The thing was super close to where it was before, with 4 or 5 degrees more timing. You know, in the mid-range here, I'm down 21. You know, literally it was like 20. It was like 27 right here. So, and it's, you know, it was making within, I think, 5 to 10 foot-pounds of torque right here at 6,000 RPM, and we're, 4 degrees less timing. So 5 degrees less timing almost. So yeah, that tells me that it was beyond MBT with that much timing, and he's not going to miss it. So it's going to run a lot smoother this way. So yeah, I'm happy with this. Wrapping this one up. Like I said, I kind of wanted to talk in this video about just how easy it is to make power with these GT500s, these 20 and ups. And I know they're definitely an expensive car. They're starting to kind of come down in price a little bit, but man, bang for the buck. You know, I had one, and it was just insane amount of, you know, the amount of stuff you could do with it. Run 9s, road course it. It was blast to drive. I'll miss it. I'll probably get another one in the future, but I got some other stuff I got to do before I jump back into one of these things. So, but I love tuning on them. I love driving them. Definitely a fan. So that'll wrap it up for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and check back on our social media for future videos, and we'll talk to you guys later.